You're being way too clingy and it's suffocating me. My girlfriend said while I had a Portugal flight confirmation folded in my jacket for our anniversary. A guy from work lit up, her phone with a red heart, and she smiled. I didn't argue. I canceled both flights 4 weeks later. The screen behind her birthday stage lit up, and her friend whispered, "You're being way too clingy and it's suffocating me." That's what she told me. 3 weeks later, I found out exactly who she wanted to breathe for instead. I spent 3 years learning how to love someone who was never going to call it enough. Turns out the problem was never that I loved too much. It was that I loved the wrong person to be too much for. I didn't say a word that night. I sat there with a flight confirmation folded in my jacket pocket and I just listened to her explain herself. Something in me went quiet right then, and it stayed quiet for a long time after. I wasn't planning anything yet. I was just paying attention, the way you do when you finally start seeing something clearly for the first time. This is the story of what happened after that quiet started, and where it eventually led both of us. My girlfriend's name was Naomi. We had been together for 3 years, and for most of that time I genuinely thought we were good at this. I am a product manager, the kind of person who builds spreadsheets for fun, and somewhere along the way I started running our relationship the same way I ran my projects. I remembered her dentist appointments. I knew which restaurant her parents liked for their anniversary. I planned things so she never had to think about logistics, because logistics were something I was good at and she was not. Naomi worked as a dental technician, and she was warm in a way that pulled people toward her at parties. She also had a habit of disappearing into her phone the second it buzzed, angling the screen away from me without seeming to notice she was doing it. One night about 4 months before our anniversary, she left the apartment at 9 without telling me where she was going, and came back close to midnight saying only that she needed air. I didn't push it. A few weeks after that, I asked who she had been texting at dinner, and she snapped at me, told me I was being paranoid, and didn't answer the question. I let both of those go. I told myself everyone needs privacy sometimes, and that asking too many questions was its own kind of problem. I was already planning our 3-year anniversary by then, a dinner at the restaurant where we had our second date, with a flight to Portugal booked and folded into the inside pocket of my jacket, ready to hand to her the moment dessert arrived. I had no idea, sitting across from her that night, that I was about to watch her choose someone else without saying his name out loud. The restaurant had low lighting and candles and glass holders, the kind of place that books up weeks in advance. We were 2 glasses into a bottle of wine my sister, Jenna, had recommended when Naomi's phone lit up on the table between us. I saw the name before she flipped it face down. Tyler. She smiled at the screen first, then caught herself and put the phone in her lap instead. "Just work stuff," she said, not looking at me. I had the flight confirmation in my jacket pocket, and my hand was actually on it when I asked, as evenly as I could, "Who's Tyler?" Naomi's face shifted. Not guilty, exactly. Annoyed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "He's just a friend from the office. We talk." She set her fork down harder than she needed to. "Why does it matter?" "It matters because you smiled at your phone and put it face down," I said. That was when she said it. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, and looked at me the way you look at a problem you're tired of solving. "You're being way too clingy, and it's suffocating me." The words landed somewhere I didn't have words for yet. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask her to take it back. Something in my chest went still, like a machine switching from one mode into another, and I just sat there feeling the shape of what she had actually said. "I just need to breathe sometimes, Ethan," she added, quieter now, almost reasonable. Is that a crime? It wasn't, not on its own. If that had been the whole sentence, I might have agreed with her. But it wasn't the whole sentence. It was the sentence she chose to say to me 3 minutes after smiling at another man's name on her phone, in the middle of the dinner I had built around a flight she didn't know existed. I took my hand off the jacket pocket. I didn't take the tickets out. I just nodded once and said, "Okay," and reached for my water instead of my wine. Across the restaurant, 2 tables over, my sister Jenna had come early to confirm tonight's reservation in person, the way she always did for clients, and she was close enough to see Naomi's phone light up again on her lap. She didn't say anything. She just watched the screen glow with Tyler's name and a small red heart next to it, and then she watched me sit there perfectly still, like none of it had touched me at all. It had touched me. It had touched me more than anything had in 3 years. I just wasn't going to let her see it yet. I called Jenna that night, a little after midnight. She had already texted me twice asking if everything was okay, since she'd seen us leave the restaurant separately. Jenna runs her own event production company, The kind that does corporate galas and milestone parties for clients who don't blink at a 5-figure invoice. And she had been the one who helped me book the restaurant and quietly arrange the whole anniversary in the first place. I saw her phone, Jenna said, before I even finished explaining. I wasn't trying to look, it just lit up. I asked her what she saw, and she told me, flat and precise, the way she talks when she's working a problem instead of having a feeling about it. A name, a heart, nothing I hadn't already guessed. I don't do drama, Ethan, she said after a moment. I do logistics, but if you ever need someone to run a room, you know where to find me. I didn't know yet what that meant. Not really. I just knew my sister had spent 15 years learning how to control a room full of strangers for a living, and that she had just watched, in real time, exactly what Naomi was capable of doing in front of one. I thanked her and hung up. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay there thinking less about what Naomi had said and more about what Jenna had just offered. Over the next 2 days, I canceled the Portugal flights and didn't tell her. I stopped texting her good morning. I stopped reserving tables, stopped remembering things out loud, stopped doing the dozens of small, invisible things I had been doing for 3 years without ever once mentioning them. Naomi noticed the silence faster than she noticed anything else about me in months. She didn't ask why I'd gone quiet. She just seemed relieved, like a window had finally been cracked open in a room she'd been suffocating in. She started staying out later. She started smiling at her phone in front of me without bothering to turn it over anymore. I let her think she'd won something. I went to work. I answered emails. I ate dinner alone most nights at a small table by my own window and felt strangely calm about it, calmer than I expected to feel. I wasn't planning a single dramatic thing yet. I was just watching, taking notes without writing anything down, and waiting for the right room to present itself. She had no idea I was already building something else, something she wouldn't see coming until she was standing in the middle of it, in front of everyone she cared about impressing. Update 1. 4 weeks after that dinner, Naomi turned 28. She'd hired an event company for a rooftop party downtown, a venue with strings of warm lights crossing overhead and a glass-walled bar at one end, the kind of place that charges by the hour and books out every weekend in summer. A small stage sat near the DJ booth, a single microphone standing on it, waiting for the toasts everyone expected later in the night. She had no idea the company she'd hired belonged to my sister. She'd never once asked for Jenna's last name. Naomi stood near the center of the rooftop in a deep green dress, laughing with a group of her coworkers, Tyler standing close beside her with his hand resting on the small of her back like it had always been there. The microphone was still empty. Nobody had walked toward it yet. Jenna arrived through the rooftop side entrance a little after 9, wearing a black blazer over a simple dress, an earpiece tucked behind one ear, a tablet held against her hip like it belonged there. She didn't rush. She moved the way she always moves when she's working, unhurried and precise, her heels clicking once against the concrete before she stepped onto the rooftop's wooden deck, scanning the layout with the practiced eye of someone who had run 100 parties exactly like this one. I watched 2 separate conversations near the entrance quiet down just from her walking past them, the way a room naturally lowers its volume around someone who clearly knows what they're doing, someone with a clipboard and a purpose. A waiter carrying a tray of champagne flutes stepped into her path near the bar, asking something quick about the dessert timeline, gesturing toward the kitchen doors behind the bar. Jenna answered him without breaking stride, 3 words, maybe 4, already scanning the room for the small stage tucked near the DJ booth, and kept walking past 2 clusters of guests toward the microphone waiting there. Naomi spotted her first and smiled, assuming the event coordinator was simply checking in. Then Jenna lifted the microphone, tapped it once, and said my name into it, inviting me up to say a few words for the birthday girl, exactly the way the program Naomi had approved said it would happen. I watched Naomi's face do 3 separate things in under a minute. First, there was pure delight, her whole expression opening up, her chin lifting, expecting something sentimental, something that would make her look adored in front of everyone watching her unwrap this moment. Then, as I stepped up and pulled out my phone instead of lifting a champagne glass toward her, her smile thinned at the edges, her eyes flicking once toward Tyler, confusion sliding in underneath the delight like cold water under a door. And then, the instant the screen behind the stage lit up with a photo I'd sent ahead to Jenna's team that afternoon, her face went completely still, her glass frozen halfway to her lips, the kind of stillness that only happens when someone understands everything all at once and has nowhere left to put that understanding. The screenshot was simple. A text thread between Naomi and Tyler, Timestamped 3 days before our anniversary dinner, her message visible in full on the screen behind me. A row of laughing emojis under something he'd written about seeing her soon. I'm not going to make this long, I said into the microphone, my voice even, almost gentle, the way you'd talk to someone you were trying not to startle. Naomi told me a few weeks ago that I was suffocating her, that I was too much. So I want to read something out loud, because I think everyone here deserves to know what she actually meant by that. I read the message exactly as it was written, my eyes on the screen and not on her. Somewhere near the bar, one of Naomi's friends turned to another and whispered, just loud enough to carry across the quiet rooftop, "Wait, that's from before they even broke up." Naomi's mouth opened and nothing came out, her free hand pressing flat against her own chest like she was checking that she was still breathing at all. Tyler, standing a few feet from her, took one visible step backward, putting actual distance between his body and hers. His hand sliding off the small of her back like it had never been there at all. I didn't cancel that trip because I stopped loving her, I said. Looking at Naomi now instead of the crowd, my voice still level, still quiet enough that people had to lean in to hear it. I canceled it because she'd already chosen someone else. She just hadn't said his name out loud yet. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. The silence on that rooftop did more work than applause ever could have, stretching out over the string lights and the half-finished glasses of champagne and the dozens of people who had stopped pretending not to listen. I set the microphone down gently on its stand, not dropped, not thrown, and stepped off the small stage without waiting for a reaction. The scene wasn't mine to finish. It was hers. Naomi stood frozen near the center of the rooftop, her glass still in her hand, untouched, the lights above her catching the wet shine starting in her eyes. She turned slowly, scanning the crowd of her own friends and coworkers, looking for somewhere safe to land her gaze, and found nothing. Then she set her glass down hard enough on the nearest table that the wine inside it sloshed over the rim, and walked off the rooftop alone, leaving Tyler standing exactly where he was. Jenna texted me that night after the rooftop had cleared out, sending a long message walking through everything that happened after I left. She told me Naomi had stayed in the building's stairwell for almost 20 minutes before her friends found her, and that Tyler had left the party entirely without saying goodbye to anyone, including her. I read the message twice, sitting alone on my couch with the lights off. I didn't feel like I'd won anything. I just felt like the room had finally seen what I'd been carrying alone for months. I texted Jenna back a simple thank you, and told her I'd cover whatever it cost her professionally if this caused problems with the client relationship. She replied almost instantly, "Don't worry about that. I run a clean business. What happens at the microphone isn't on me." I set my phone down on the coffee table and sat there for a while in the quiet apartment, the same quiet that had started weeks earlier at that restaurant table. Tomorrow I had a flight to think about booking, an actual one this time, for myself. I was already looking past that night, past Naomi, past the version of my life that had been built around managing someone else's comfort. Update 2. Naomi called me 11 times over the next 2 days. When I didn't pick up, she switched to texting, long messages that started apologetic and ended accusatory, telling me I had humiliated her in front of everyone she worked with, that I had no right to turn her birthday into a spectacle. On the 3rd day, she showed up at my office building during lunch, standing near the entrance where my coworkers walk through every single day. She caught me in the lobby and raised her voice, asking why I would do something so cruel, so calculated, in front of people who barely knew either of us. 2 coworkers from my floor walked past slowly, clearly listening, clearly recognizing exactly the kind of behavior she had once accused me of. "You humiliated me," she said, loud enough that the security guard at the front desk looked up from his phone. "Do you have any idea what that felt like?" I kept my voice low, the opposite of hers. I read 3 sentences off a screen. "Naomi, you're the one who wrote them." She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she brought up the trip, the canceled flights, telling me I had been planning this revenge for weeks while pretending everything was fine, like the planning itself was the crime, and not the message that started it. Nowhere in any of it did she mention Tyler's name. Nowhere did she ask whether what she'd done was wrong. She genuinely seemed to believe the only thing that had happened was that I'd embarrassed her in public, as if the rest of it had simply never occurred. She left the lobby that day still angry, still certain she was the only one who'd been wronged. Watching her walk out, I understood something I hadn't fully understood before. She wasn't sorry. She was just sorry she'd gotten caught somewhere she couldn't control. About 3 weeks after the office lobby, Jenna sent me a message late one evening, no real explanation attached, Just a screenshot from a group chat we used to share with mutual friends back when Naomi and I were still together. Priya, a friend of Naomi's from college, who I'd met a handful of times, had posted an update asking if anyone had heard from Naomi lately, saying she seemed off. I called Jenna instead of texting back, mostly out of habit by then. Priya told me they're officially together now, Jenna said. Her and Tyler, but apparently he went quiet on her for 4 days after their first actual date together. No explanation, nothing. Priya said Naomi kept checking her phone the whole time they were on a call, like she was waiting for something. I sat with that for a second, turning my own coffee cup slowly on the counter, not saying anything. Apparently she asked Priya if that's normal, Jenna continued. If people just go quiet like that sometimes. I thought about the version of Naomi who used to get irritated if I didn't respond to a text within an hour, who once told me I was checking up on her too much when I asked if she'd landed safely from a work trip. I thought about how much space she had wanted from me, specifically, and said so out loud at a dinner table in front of both of us. I didn't say any of that to Jenna. I just typed back a single small laughing emoji, nothing more, and set my phone face down on the counter, finishing the rest of my coffee in silence. Jenna texted one more time before I went to bed. Priya says she keeps asking if 4 days of silence is normal. I read it once, then locked my phone and left it on the kitchen counter overnight, somewhere I wouldn't see it light up again until morning. A week after that, I booked a flight to Lisbon for myself. One ticket, no second name on the reservation. It was the same city I'd planned to take Naomi to, but I wasn't thinking about that when I clicked confirm. The fare was just low that week, and I had 3 vacation days sitting unused. I sat alone at gate 22 eating a sandwich from a kiosk that had clearly been sitting under the heat lamp too long, and it didn't bother me at all. I scrolled through nothing in particular on my phone, no one to update, no itinerary I needed to defend or explain to anybody. A woman a few seats down asked if I was traveling for work or for fun, and I told her fun, just like that, no hesitation, no qualifier attached to it. I hadn't said a sentence that simple about my own life in longer than I could remember. When they called my boarding group, I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the gate without checking my phone one more time before I did it. Final update. Naomi wanted space. By the time I heard about her again, she had more space than she'd ever asked for, and almost nobody left standing in it with her. Priya called Jenna sometime in early autumn, and Jenna passed the call along to me almost word for word a few hours later, sitting across from me at a coffee shop neither of us usually went to. Priya had run into Naomi by accident. At the same cafe, Naomi and I used to go to nearly every Sunday morning during our second year together, the one with the cracked blue awning and the barista who used to remember both our orders. Naomi had been sitting alone at a small table near the window, one coffee in front of her, no second cup, no second chair pulled out across from her. Her phone sat face up on the table the entire time Priya spoke to her, the screen lighting up twice with notifications neither of them bothered to check. Neither of them apparently mattering enough to interrupt the conversation. She looked tired, Priya had told Jenna. Not dressed up or anything, just tired. According to Priya, Tyler had stopped responding to her messages with any real consistency months earlier, sometimes vanishing for days at a stretch with no warning and no apology when he resurfaced. He never asked her where she wanted to eat. He never remembered which coffee order was hers. He simply existed alongside her, present in name only, the way someone exists in a relationship they never fully agreed to be in. Naomi had looked across the table at Priya that afternoon, turning her coffee cup slowly in a small circle, and said one thing that Priya repeated back to Jenna almost exactly. I don't even know the last time someone asked how my day was. Jenna told me that part last, watching my face carefully while she said it, like she expected some kind of reaction from me, something dramatic. There wasn't one. I just looked down at my own coffee for a moment, feeling something settle quietly in my chest, the way you feel when you finally set down a bag you've been carrying so long you forgot your shoulder was supposed to feel light without it. I didn't feel like celebrating, and I didn't feel like reaching out to her either, not even a little. I just felt, for the first time in almost a year, like the weight of her was finally, completely off of me, and that the floor underneath me could hold my full weight again. These days I'm seeing someone new, a woman named Claire I met through a coworker a few months after Lisbon. Last weekend she asked me, completely on her own, without me bringing it up first, whether I'd eaten anything before I left work. It's such a small question. It took me a second to even know how to answer it, because nobody had asked me that in longer than I wanted to admit. I still travel by myself sometimes, even now, even with Claire in my life. I still keep that same kiosk sandwich memory in my head as a strange little marker of when something in me changed for good. My apartment is quieter than it used to be, in the good way, the way a room sounds when nobody in it is performing for anyone else, including me. I'm not wiser than I was 3 years ago. I don't think any of this taught me some grand lesson about love or about myself. I'm just free. And standing here now, I finally understand those are two completely different things.